Yo everyone, it's Ian, hitting you with it with Monday, making your Monday a little more boring, or a little more exciting, depending on if you like this video. And I finally got a new microphone, because, in case you haven't heard, my sound quality has been kind of bad, in terms of voice. And that was because I had a Triton headset that was used for like 360 gaming and all that, but that kind of crapped out on me, and it stopped working. If you want to know what that sounded like, watch the Alpha vlog with me and Bill, although that's kind of old. That's whenever it actually worked, and it sounded okay, but not the best, and there was a lot of pop. All of my other microphones just don't work. It's as simple as that, and it's really annoying. So I finally just said screw it, put down $50 for the blue snowball, and it's working great. Sounds great. Everything's just going well. So, and one thing that's funny is this is just a normal blue snowball where it has the cardioid with a 10 decibel pad, and the omnidirectional, which picks up all different sounds. Like I said, picked it up for $50 on Amazon, and when Bill went to buy this microphone, I told him, don't get the snowball ice, which is the same thing but only with one setting. He ended up getting the ice instead. Something that we just kind of joke around about. But that's not the point of this video. Today, I kind of just wanted to do something a little more laid back. I know I always talk about my PC and always talk about upgrades and like getting a new motherboard, or with my upcoming video, the NZXT Plus is now installed in my computer and a new case and everything, and it looks great. I just kind of wanted to talk about the story of my computer because I've never really talked about it, and it's kind of interesting. But yeah, we'll get started. So, ever since I was a little kid, I was always into computery stuff. Me and my dad would always just like take things apart, and it was just something that stuck with me, and I liked it. And I've always just had a soft spot for technology. I mean, I loved playing video games. I loved having consoles, knowing that like each thing was its own computer. I just thought it was great. And then eventually I opened a computer, and I'm like, oh, this is all computer stuff, it's great. But it all started whenever I wanted to play Saints Row 3 on my computer, and it didn't work. I had a Core 2 Duo, which is I think 2.5 gigahertz dual core. I don't think it has hyperthreading or anything like that. And I don't even think I had a video card. And no, I did, but it was like, I don't even know what it was called. It was just really crappy. I think it was a Radeon though, but I'm not sure. It didn't work, and my dad had a pretty decent computer too. Well, mine wasn't decent, his was. I mean, it wasn't like gonna play GTA 5 or anything like that. It was just like just a normal machine. It had a i3. I don't know what kind it was or anything, and it had a Radeon 5550 HD, and he wasn't using it that much, so he let me borrow his Radeon, and the game ran okay. I mean, I got about like 25 to 30 frames on low settings, and that's what I wanted at the time, so it was whatever. And eventually I got my own Radeon, and I thought it was pretty cool. I knew like some small things, like how to put RAM in a computer, or how to put a video card in, but that was basically it. I knew nothing else. So I put the card in, and that was that. I had my first computer, I guess you could say. Eventually I got a little more wanting, and I wanted a gaming computer. Not knowing anything about computers, I settled on, I think it was the Alienware X51 or something like that. I don't know. And I remember there was different models. There was the i3, i5, and i7. And I settled on the i3 because it was cheapest, and I didn't even know what the hell i3 meant. And just because it looked cool, I thought it was going to be a great system. And then my dad went on like something and found benchmarks, and it didn't really perform that well. I think like on high, BioShock Infinite ended up getting like 30 frames average, and I was just like, oh shit. So at that point, something just happened, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just build a computer? and that's what I started to lean towards. I started learning all these different components. I knew like what certain things did, and eventually I became a tech enthusiast. I wouldn't compare myself to like Linus Tech Tips or whatever, but I knew how to build a computer, I knew what each part meant, and I knew a pretty fair amount. Not as much as I know today, because if I went back to my younger self when I was learning all this, I'd probably blow the younger me's mind. But that's besides the point. I knew enough that I could build a computer. So I went on Newegg, and I put together a build, and it was AMD effects, and this is like 4 or 5 years ago maybe. It was an AMD FX 6300 and a 750 Ti. Well, maybe it was like 3 years, whatever. It was a 750 Ti, and I saw gameplay, and I'm like, oh, this looks great, awesome. And this is where it all goes downhill, sort of. I showed it to my mom, and I said, I want these parts for Christmas, because I get spoiled as hell for Christmas. Only child things. And being spoiled things. Whatever. So, my mom said, we'll see, and just try to keep it in this price range. I think it was like $600-ish. And that would have been the only thing I got for Christmas, is that computer. And I was perfectly okay with that. I wanted a computer so badly. About a week later, I go on Newegg. I swap out the 6300 for an 8350. Ended up swapping out the 750 Ti to a 760. And then I just kept adding more and more shit to this build, to the point where for a while it ended up being like the later build was an i7 4790K, 2 GTX 760s. I was planning on running those in SLI, just a standard motherboard, Fury X RAM, and a fucking 1200 watt power supply, and it just kept adding up, and the price ended up being $1,200, and my mom and dad kept saying, why do you keep adding stuff to it? It's not gonna happen. Like, you had a $600 computer, now it's $1,200. You're not gonna get this for Christmas. I'm like, oh, it's okay, I'll work for it, I'll get a job. I'm 13, and no places in Pittsburgh were hiring at 13. At least places that weren't under the table. And it never happened. I never got the computer. So, a little while after, this was actually when I still wanted that computer. One of my mom's friend's husband, who is, I don't know, he's like an IT guy or something, and they have a bunch of HP computers. My mom was telling her friend, and then her friend told her husband. Husband texted my mom saying, hey, I heard Ian wanted to build a computer. What kind of parts is he looking for? And my mom had me like type in all the parts. So I ended up saying like i7 4790K, this motherboard, this, like, all this stuff, 2 760s. And then he ended up replying, you know that's really expensive, right? And I'm like, yeah, I know. What he did though, and this was really cool, and this changed everything. He said, alright, I'm gonna look around the office, see what we have that we're not using. I might be able to hook you up. He gave me 2 things. A HP laptop, I forget what it's called. I still have it, but it kinda went downhill. It worked great, but there was a lot of HP bloatware and all that, and it was slow and all this stuff on it. Although it had an i5 in it. But after I wiped the drive and installed Windows 7, it worked great. And then one of the keys broke, and then just a bunch of crap happened to it, and it works still, but just not that well. I have to plug in an external keyboard because half the keys don't work, and the mouse pad is glitchy. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it'll work, and and other times like the pointer will fly to the top right of the screen, so I have to plug in an external mouse. But other than that, it still kind of works and comes in handy every now and then. Then he gave me a desktop computer, and I remember coming home from my friend's house, and I come home and there's the laptop. I'm like, oh cool, a laptop. And then I'm looking at the desktop, and it has the i7 badge, and I remember screaming, it has an i7 in it, oh my god. Like, I felt like the N64 kid. Old video. And whenever I saw the i7 badge, I instantly thought like 4790K or something like that. And then whenever I checked the system specs, it said i7 2600. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's old, it sucks, blah. And if I went back now, I would have slapped myself in the face, because I'll get to that in a minute. So my idea, and this is stupid, is I was going to gut that entire PC and my entire Core 2 Duo PC, because I still had that. I've had that PC for so long now, and it's been out of servers for about 3 years. I decided to, like, I was gonna gut them and sell each part individually on eBay, and that was gonna make up for like 80% of the cost that it was gonna take to build this insane computer. And the only thing I ended up selling was the the RAM. It was, I think, 4 gigs of DDR2, and it sold for about $10, and that was it. I had an NVIDIA Quadro 400, and that came part of this computer that it gave me, and I tried to sell that for $100. Yeah, no. I was young, I was stupid, and I just didn't understand this stuff, and it's so like cringy just to hear that now. But besides the point, the stuff didn't sell, so I kept the desktop build, and I'm glad I did. I put my Radeon in there, and it ran games pretty okay. I mean, yeah, it was a huge GPU bottleneck, but I could play BioShock Infinite at like sub HD with like really low settings, and I got like 50-ish frames. Although my Radeon was overclocked to the max, and it was so hot to the touch, it ran games. Now, it wouldn't have ran Grand Theft Auto or anything, or hell, maybe not even Batman Arkham City, which is what you're seeing right now. Maybe not well, at least. But it got me by. And I've had that PC for quite a while. In fact, I was still using it in 2016. But eventually, I wanted to get a PC again, or a gaming PC. And I put together another build, and it was going to be a 6300 and a GTX 950. And it was good. Ran stuff. Yeah, like the whole, I think it's Bulldozer now, like the FX 6300, 8350, 9590, that whole chipset. It's old, but I mean it works if you're making a like extreme budget build. And I was gonna do that. I was gonna get it for my birthday, and then parents were like, "Hey, this is expensive, and we're not just gonna get this for you for your birthday. Like, come on." And I was just like devastated, because like, fudge, I need this PC so bad. I was just getting so like eager, because at this point it had been quite a few years, maybe, like I said, like 2, 3, 4 years. And eventually I settled down, and I said, alright, I have an i7 2600. That's a good CPU, because at this point I realized I had a good CPU. Then I looked for a motherboard. I got the Biostar H61 MGV3, and I didn't have a job at this point, but I cashed in a bunch of change, and I ended up with like $90 in change. And I was gonna buy a new phone. I was gonna get like the LG G Vista, because my HTC M8 broke, and I said, screw it. I'm gonna wait on a phone. I need this PC. So I bought the motherboard, I bought a case, I bought some RAM, and I think that was it. And then at this point my birthday was in a couple weeks, or not even, like maybe a week and a half. It all happens. I put the CPU in the motherboard, and put the RAM in, and then all of a sudden, the heatsink that was in the HP computer, I gutted it, like I took it out, put it in this PC, and it didn't fit for whatever reason. I guess it was just like made for this motherboard, like specially, and I was just so mad that it didn't work, because now I had to buy a 212 Evo, or any heatsink. That's just what I bought. And this is extremely lucky. My pap came over, because tax return season, and he was like, oh yeah, Ian's mom's name, yeah, we'll take you out for dinner, it'll be really nice. And my mom's like, no, just save your money, you don't need to take me out, it's fine. And he had about 40 bucks, and he looks to me and he's like, oh well, not taking your mom out to dinner, here you go, and gives me 40 bucks. And I was just mind blown. So I went ahead, bought a 212 Evo, and this was literally the day after I realized I needed to get a new heatsink. So I bought a 212 Evo, and everything was good. So this is where things get really messed up. I'm sorry this story is kind of long, but it's just something I like to share. So birthday comes, and I get a GTX 960. I'm stoked. Actually, I got this a little before my birthday because shipping was great with Newegg. Put it all together, and I used an old power supply. That old power supply was garbage. It said it had a wattage of 550 watts. Turns out that was the peak. It really only gave off like 430. So there's blue screens, it was really glitchy, it was really slow. Like I would be playing games and then they would just freeze for like a minute. Not fun, and I had no idea what it was. I thought my computer just sucked. And long story short, I did a crap ton of research, and I found out it was the power supply. So I bought a EVGA 600B, and all the problems went away. Then I bought a few small things, like I bought a 1 terabyte Western Digital blue drive, bought a Corsair fan, the AF120 blue LED, and everything was fine after that. Almost. The motherboard, and long story short, VRM, voltage regulator module, supplies or downgrades 12 volts from the rail given. It downgrades 12 volts given from the power supply down to like 1 to 2 volts, and it's given to your CPU. Those things get really hot, and if they get too hot, they thermothrottle, and if they thermothrottle, your frame rates drop. Whew, that was fast. Those phone went off. Those on the old motherboard were overheating, and they did everything I was saying. So at this point, I got a job, saved up for the motherboard, and got the board that I mentioned in my video, the ASRock C77 Extreme 4. And then everything was perfect. I ended up overclocking my i7 to 4 gigahertz, and it was just perfect. After that, I saved up for a new case. I got the NZ... you didn't need to know that yet. Yeah, I'm just joking. I got the NZXT S340 Black, and I got the NZXT Hue Plus, and that was the last PC upgrade I did, for now. That was a long story, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit subscribe and watch our other videos. We're making videos all the time. I make my videos every Monday. Be sure to check out Bill's review series every Thursday, and see you next time. Goodbye.
Hey, how you doing? So you like that video? That's great. Should probably leave a like and a comment to let us know. Probably share it with your friends too, and hit that subscribe button. Make us feel good about ourselves. Alright, thank you.